I was doing the thumbnail for this video. It asks you to take a thumbnail, and it's kind of awkward because it's on the screen where it's vertical, but then the thumbnail's horizontal, and it just doesn't work. So the thumbnails always look bad on these videos. But I was cracking up because I was titling what was this video going to be like titled, the talk of the video, and I wrote the title, "Take a Look at Yourself," and I'm looking, it wants to take a thumbnail, and I'm like retaking this thumbnail 5 times. like it hasn't changed. Thumbnail still looks the same, still doesn't look that good. But I'm taking a good look at myself every time that I'm taking that thumbnail photo. And I just thought it was funny. Because no matter how many times you can do something, you know, how many times you can take a look at yourself, you can still see the same thing, the same problems, or the same challenges, the same struggles. Or, you know, I look back at, obviously I'm not just talking superficially now. I look back, the reason I was wanting to make this video is because I was just finished a phone call with somebody, and we were talking about boot camp, and you know, I was asking why are we on the phone, and main reason is they just didn't like the person they're becoming, and I resonated with that. I understand. And you know, when you've built success around things that don't really matter to you anymore, you cannot like the person you're becoming. And especially if you've done it in ways that just don't align with who God made you to truly be. And that was my story. I'm not speaking about anybody else. That was my story. And I was acting out. I was doing all kinds of things. But anyway, after the call, I was talking with somebody, and after the call, I was in the car. I was thinking about what I need to be doing next, and I was like, we need to talk. We need to talk. And so I was looking at some videos on YouTube and just trying to get my head around, all right, like, what are some things that people need to hear about? But I got sidetracked, and I saw some videos on a private list, private video playlist on my YouTube from 5 years ago. And I watched one of them. It was of me talking, and I watched one of them, and I thought to myself, man, this video is so corny and so cheesy. I was like, there's some good stuff that was said, but the video itself was pretty corny and cheesy. And I couldn't help myself, though, because as I was looking at it, I knew all the real stuff going on inside of me back then. And as I was looking at it, I thought, I'm proud of that guy. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of that man. 5 years ago, you know, I was looking back in time. I saw in my own eyes, I saw the man on that video. And even though it was cheesy, even though it was corny, even though I said some things, I'm like, I don't know if I agree with that. But I was like, I'm proud of you. And the reason that I'm proud of him, my younger self, was because he was trying. I felt like I got a unique perspective about how God sees us sometimes. I felt like I got a unique view into my own life. Because for a long time, a lot of people will say this, I was my own worst critic. But I got to see a side of me that I think God sees all the time. It's the fact that we're trying. It's the fact that we're making the effort. It's the fact that we're out there doing the thing. Me right now, trying. And I think more of us need to be able to see that side of us and need to be able to look at our lives and look at our past and need to take a look at ourselves, and we need to say, God, like, what do you see? What do you see right now? What do you see in this man or is this woman? What do you see in my past? What do you see with all the stuff that I could judge and criticize myself for? What do you see right now? I need to see what you see right now. You know, when in that video, it's funny. It was a video for the first boot camp that I was ever going to do, which I hadn't created yet. And the video was all about vision, who you're becoming. And I still didn't even have understanding of what that meant. And the video was talking about you got to get clear on who you're becoming. And that's literally the conversation that I just had for an hour and a half with somebody. They were talking about, you know, I've had success in this career, but I'm trying to think about what's next and how I pivot and do something with more purpose. And I'm like, well, maybe you have to think about your decisions through the lens of the person you're becoming, who God's made you to be. And that's, frankly, that's one of the things we do in the boot camp early, because you got to get clear on who God sees you to be. That is what identity is. Identity is how you see yourself, and you got to get clear on how God sees you. And you got to get clear that God sees you as a person who's forgiving, keeps a short account. God sees you as somebody who uses their giftings even if it's not perfect. God sees you as somebody who has compassion even if the person doesn't deserve it. God sees you as the person who acts with integrity even when it's hard. You know, and you got to understand that God sees you that way because he made you in his image. So the more we get to know God, the more we get to understand ourselves. That's the process. That's the process we're in. And for me, you know, it's funny because I look back 5 years ago, I look at that video and I go, dang, you had no idea what was coming. You were trying. If I knew all the things that were coming, I probably would have stopped in my tracks. I was trying though. You know, I had no idea all the things I would face, all the difficulty of trying to figure out how to make sense of what was happening and being transformed by the renewing of my mind. I had no idea how hard it would be to heal, to get healthy. I look at that video, I go, wow, man, you need to put on some weight, guy. I was living in a state of heavy dysfunction. Hormones were all out of whack. It was definitely paying its toll on me. I had no idea how hard it would be. I had no idea. And thank God, though, because it's his mercy, I think, that gives us the sight we need. You know, and I could say that now about my future and whatever it is ahead of me. God's grace is sufficient. But I think his grace looks like, you know, us being willing to submit our own thoughts about ourselves, about our past, about our past selves. And we got to say, God, what do you see? What do you see? What do you see in me? His grace can look like that. When you surrender your right to criticize and judge yourself, and you say, God, I want to know what you think. I want your thoughts. It is so important. Most people struggle with their past because they don't understand that it's not about your past, it's about your perspective. Most people struggle with things that happen in their life and being a victim because they don't understand that, yes, while you were a victim and while that developed a victim mentality in you, which is the reason for victimhood, you don't have to remain a victim because God gives you a new perspective about that situation. He heals your mind. That's a real thing that happens. There's a real thing that happens. Your thoughts are proteins, comes to the front of your brain, and it starts to change as you get a new perspective about those memories. That's a real thing. That is the process of being transformed by the renewing of your mind. The Bible has talked about this for a long time. We are now just discovering it in science. But this is a real thing God has been doing. He does it with people I'm working with. He does it with me. He'll do it with you. It's just the process of being renewed, but you got to change how you see yourself. Take a look at yourself. Take a look at yourself. How do you see yourself, honestly? How do you see yourself? Do you hold value for yourself? This is not some like self-love kind of thing. No, it's like God sees you and values you. Do you value yourself? I can tell you, for there've been in my maturing and my stumbling, which is what maturing looks like for me. I don't know about you. As God raises me up as I stumble and try and get back on my feet, am I maturing? Am I healing? Am I changing? Am I growing? God has shown me that I did not see things the way that He sees things, especially me. I did not value myself because you know why? That's the hardest thing to receive. The fact that we're valued. The fact that, God actually loved us while we were still sinners. That's a crazy concept. The fact that we don't deserve a lot of the things that we get. The good and the bad. It's hard to receive that. Somebody the other day asked me about, what do you think legacy is? And I think, my response was on a podcast or something. And my response was something like, I think legacy first is understanding how to receive. Because how can you live a legacy from a broken identity? You have to receive the gift that God has given you and understanding how He sees you, whole, originally created to be with Him for eternity. That is how God sees you, but we were born into a world that is broken. It is broken, and you cannot live your life. I was frustrated today walking around at the zoo because I told my wife, I said, I struggle being in public places. The world is so broken. I know the reality of brokenness in my own life, but I see it. God has given me this grace to see brokenness everywhere. Not because, not for me to criticize, but for me to have compassion. And so I struggle being in public places because I have so much compassion for all that is just broken and missing. And so all I want to do is just walk around praying for everybody. And it's like, oh, this is family time, but I'm trying to I could be distracted. This could be a day out here at the zoo. Just pray for this person, pray for that person, talk with this person, talk with that person. And it is a struggle. When God shows you how broken the world is, how broken your life is, and how much you need Him, and then you start to see the rest of the world, how broken the rest of the world is, oh my gosh, it's almost impossible to live in it. It's got to be His grace that's sufficient, because otherwise it's just impossible. And so you got to ask for His eyes. You got to ask for His way of seeing things. Because otherwise, you live blind. And if you see the brokenness in life, you live very hopeless because you don't see life through His eyes. That He wants to bring restoration to you, to the people around you. He wants to bring wholeness to you, to the people around you. So it's more of a challenge, I guess I'd say. It's more of a challenge to you. I would challenge you to take a look at your life through a different set of glasses. I would challenge you to do that. Go through some old photos. Look at yourself. Look at your past self. See what God says. What does God see? Hold your own judgment back and don't let the enemy in. What does God see in the person that you've been and the person that you're becoming? Because it might be very different than what you see. And that's very telling.